side to raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
May I please report your honor? Raybon, she's here on case 2022 GS450057. This is a waiver indictment. Your honor, she is represented by Mr. Virgil Barr of the Williamsburg County Public Defender's Office. She was charged with possession of meth, and she is here to plead guilty to that charge this morning. The state is recommending a suspended sentence to include probation. The condition of probation would be that she completes the drug court program, and she can keep to probation once she completes the drug court program.
Okay, Ms. Raven, I'm Judge Curtis. Ma'am, I understand that you're here today to plead guilty to possession of less than 1 gram of methamphetamine first offense, which carries up to 3 years, I believe. Is that right, Mr. Barr, Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Is that your understanding, Ms. Raven?
Yes.
And you've had a chance to discuss this with your attorney?
Yes.
And are you satisfied with what Mr. Barr has done to you?
Yes.
You're not under the influence today of any drugs or alcohol?
No.
Has anyone promised you anything to try to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Has anybody forced you, threatened you, coerced you in any way?
No.
You're waiving some rights today when you enter this plea. Looks like your case has not yet been presented to the grand jury. After I accept your plea, your case will not go to the grand jury. You'll waive that right, and you understand that?
Yes.
You have a constitutional right to remain silent. If your case went to trial, nobody could force you to testify. If you chose not to testify, nobody can hold that against you. But when you plead guilty, you waive that constitutional right to remain silent. And you understand that?
Yes.
You're also waiving your constitutional right to a trial by jury, to let 12 citizens hear the evidence against you and let them decide whether you're guilty or not guilty. Again, when you plead guilty, you waive that right to a jury trial. And you understand that?
Yes.
In a trial, the state always has the burden of proving you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And all 12 jurors have to agree that you're guilty before you can be convicted. You're waiving those rights today, and you understand that?
Yes.
Also, when you have a trial, you get the chance to confront the state's witnesses. Mr. Barr gets a chance to ask them questions on cross-examination, and then he can present a defense on your behalf, and he can subpoena your witnesses to come to court and testify. Again, you waive those rights today when you enter this plea, and you understand that. Ms. Raven, understanding all of your rights, ma'am, are you pleading guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Okay. Excuse me, I'm going to hear the facts from Ms. Alston, and then I'll have a few more questions for you.
Okay.
In your honor, on October 22nd, 2020, agents with the Williamsburg County Sheriff Office performed a traffic stop on Midway Road, which is within the Williamsburg County area and the Hemingway area. Agent Scott observed 2 subjects going to a convicted drug dealer's home. Within 2 minutes, the vehicle was leaving the residence and came back towards where surveillance was being conducted. When the vehicle passed and continued down Midway Road, the vehicle went left of center several different times. A traffic stop was conducted. Upon approach, both subjects lied about where they were headed and where they just went to. Both parties were then asked to step from the vehicle. During this, the pair was confronted with what was observed. Separately, the passenger identified herself as Ms. Raybon. That is when Agent Scott was able to observe 2 blue in color straws with a residual substance on them that is consistent with the narcotic usage in Ms. Raybon's open purse. At that time, Agent Scott began to search the vehicle to see if there were any narcotics in the vehicle. Agent Scott then asked Ms. Raybon where her ID was, and she said in her pocketbook. When the pocketbook was retrieved from the vehicle, and once upon retrieving her wallet and opening it, and then to get the ID out, there were 2 clear crystalline rocks in the wallet, which Agent Scott knows to be crystal meth. When this happened, both the subject admitted that he traveled to the fence, and Ms. Raybon exited the vehicle and bought a quantity of meth from the drug dealer. And your honor, she has no criminal history, and I believe she's also leaving the testing of the drugs as well.
So, Ms. Raven, you understand the drugs are usually sent off for testing to verify that it is in fact methamphetamine. That has not happened yet. After I take your plea, they will not go back and test it. You will have waived your right to require the state to prove that it is in fact methamphetamine. And you understand that?
Yes.
And you still want to plead guilty?
Yes.
Otherwise, are those facts true that you just heard from Ms. Alston?
Yes.
Okay, I do find that there's a sufficient factual basis for me to accept your plea, and I find that you're entering the plea today freely and voluntarily, understanding your rights and with the advice of Mr. Barr, a very competent attorney. You have 10 days from today's date if you wanted to appeal your conviction. Mr. Barr, I'm glad you're with me.
Yes, Your Honor. I've had a conversation with Ms. Rayburn. She was a very sweet lady. She's already in a drug treatment program where she's getting mandatory testing. I informed her about drug court. I let her know that drug court is it's a very serious thing. There's a lot of checkpoints that she's going to have to make sure that she passes through. She's confident that she can pass those tests. She's confident that she's ready to again tackle the addiction that seems to be really hurting our community. We agree with the facts. We do waive the testing of the drugs based on the fact that Ms. Rayburn wants to put this behind her.
So the drug court program is an excellent program. It's pretty rigorous, and so they will hold you accountable because, I mean, the whole point of it is to try to get you into recovery, out of abuse and addiction into recovery. So it's not going to be very effective if they don't hold you accountable. On the other hand, they have a tremendous amount of resources, and the whole reason the program exists is to try to help you succeed and try to get you into that recovery community. So if you go in with the attitude that, they want to see you succeed. Nobody is wanting you to fail. They want to see you put this behind you and get in recovery and stay in recovery. But it's a great program. Generally, I've got to give a fairly lengthy period of probation for you to be able to get through drug court without timing out the compliance credits. But I'm happy to allow your probation to terminate once you complete drug court. So what I'm going to do is a sentence of 1 year, suspended to probation for 3 years, requiring completion of drug court, and again, allowing your probation to terminate upon successful completion of drug court. Any questions for me, Ms. Redden?
No.
All right, good luck to you, ma'am.
This is Christian News TY. I'm Tony Conyers. Is there any newsworthy events? We will get them to you as soon as possible. If not, you can follow us on Christian News TY Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube, and you can follow us on our website.
Ms. Oremus is recognized. Speak against the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, since we brought God into this, let's go there. God created a woman and a man. And the last time I checked, God does not make mistakes. I'm not saying that I am against anybody that identifies as a man or a woman. What I'm saying to you is, God doesn't make mistakes. I'm saying just stay in your lane. If you're a man, you are biologically stronger than me. No matter if you have hormone blockers or not, your vascular strength, your heart is larger, and that's always going to be the case. So we're not just talking about those 4 in the state. We are also talking about how it affects us now in a grown-up life. Some of you know that I play tennis, and we currently have a few transgenders that are playing in our tennis leagues as adults. We get out there as women, we get emasculated, we get all over the court, and no matter what we do, we're never going to be just as fast or just as strong. So it's not only in our colleges, it's reflecting later in life. So let's talk about the NCAA as well. We don't make laws for other states, people. We need to make the laws for South Carolina. So we're not worried about those coming in from other states. And let's talk about that championship from South Carolina. Did we have Kobe Bryant's out there with wigs on winning in that championship? No, we had women who were amazing, and we don't want to take that opportunity. We talk about race. Why would you want to take that opportunity away from those young black women who are rock stars and are amazing? Miss Trantham, she's coached and been a part of the basketball community for a long time. And she's been a part of that, seeing how those girls' lives are changed by building them up and bringing them through that. And if they had a man competing that's always going to be stronger and better than them, That's God talking right there, y'all. That's God. And He's telling you to think with your brains and quit taking those opportunities away from those women. And I mean, we're sitting here divided over this issue, and some are laughing and thinking it's humorous. It is not humorous. Why are we even thinking about this? If you have a little girl, you're going to look her in the eye and put her on the court, a basketball court with a man out there, or let's look at what's happened with the swimming. That guy was 462nd as a male swimmer. He comes into the women's league, and guess what? He's #1. What is that? And then you got 2 other girls, the 2nd and 3rd should have been the true winners of the NCAA swimming. That is where we are, guys.
What this particular amendment does, there is a section of this bill which lays out certain findings by the South Carolina General Assembly, and this amendment would include a very specific and particular finding of fact that is actually a very serious matter, is that the average life expectancy in America of a black trans woman in the United States is only 35 years. And, you know, we have our differing stances on the issue of transgender in sports, but if we're talking about findings of fact, and we're going to lay out findings of fact in the legislation itself, we need to include facts that let people know it's not okay to discriminate and it's not okay to take hateful acts against trans individuals. By way of background, Dana Martin was 31 when she was killed in Montgomery, Alabama. Jazeline Ware was found dead in her apartment in Memphis, Tennessee. Ashanti Carmen was 27 when she was shot and killed in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is also in the Fourth Circuit with us. Claire Legato was 21 when she was shot and killed in Cleveland, Ohio. Malaysia Booker was shot and killed in Dallas, Texas. She was 23 years old. Paris Cameron was one of 3 people who were shot and killed in an anti-LGBT hate crime in Detroit, Michigan. Shino Lindsay was 26 when she was found dead in Dallas, Texas. Chanel Skurlock was 23 when she was found fatally shot in Lumberton, North Carolina, which is also in the Fourth Circuit with us. Zoe Spears was the same age when she was found lying in the street with signs of trauma in Fairmount Heights, Maryland, who's also in the Fourth Circuit with us. Each of these women were black trans women. The average life expectancy being 35 years old should be very, very shocking. That just speaks to the level of trauma that these individuals have to endure, whether it be public criticism, whether it be hateful acts, whether it be murderous intent, and the overall stress of living life, trying to be yourself, where you're just not, it's not that you're just not accepted, it's that you have to live with knowing you're not accepted, but you have to live with the overt acts taken by other people, including the overt acts taken, for instance, with this legislation here in the South Carolina General Assembly. Y'all know the average life expectancy of South Carolina citizens is much higher than 35. This would adopt that finding of fact in this legislation, and it sends a very strong signal to the trans community that we do understand that it's not just politics. And if you are watching and listening to this debate, you need to understand.
Your time has expired. Ms. McKnight is recognized to speak against the amendment. Ms. McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues. This issue is emotionally charged enough without us bringing in issues of race. This bill, or this amendment, doesn't address the core issue. This issue isn't about all the attended facts. This issue is specifically tailored sports, high school sports, interscholastic sports in South Carolina. With that being said, let's stay on topic. We can have a reasonable debate, we can disagree, but this isn't an issue. I had a colleague earlier this morning outside of this body that tried to make this a racial issue, who seemed to suggest that being transgender was on par with being an African American in his defense or opposition to the bill that we're here on. We don't need that. That's beyond the pale. let's stick to the core issue. Let's talk about what we're here today, and that is whether or not transgender boys should be playing sports in South Carolina with our girls. And the answer to that question, for me, is no. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise this afternoon to fully support this legislation. I want to first say that different does not mean inferior. There's a world of difference between all of us. Some of us are tall, some of us are very short, some of us are round, some of us are slim, but that doesn't mean that any of us are better than the others. There are fundamental differences between men and women, and we can't overlook those differences. I have a little girl. She's 6, and I'm doing my best to raise her to understand that she can take the world by storm and do whatever it is she wants to do. But sometimes she may have to go about it a little differently than a little boy does. Does that mean that little boy is better than her? No. It just means that we're different. Well, you may say, what do you mean, Representative McKnight? Let me tell you, I proudly served my country in the United States Army beside women, but they had different physical fitness standards than I did. Their PT test requirements were different than mine. They had to do less push-ups than I did. They had to run more, they had a longer time to run their 2-mile run than I did. But does that mean they're incapable of being good soldiers? Absolutely not. We have women that are firefighters. Their physical fitness standards are different than their male counterparts. Does that mean they can't be good firefighters? Absolutely not. We have wonderful women in law enforcement. Their physical fitness standards are different than men. Are they any less good cops than their male counterparts? Absolutely not. I've heard and I share the concerns of how transgender children may deal with this. But I have to ask the question, how are our little girls going to deal with this? What am I going to tell Claire when she goes out to compete and she may have to run against a boy and she loses? How do I console my child? Do you want me to lie to her and tell her that it's okay, honey? If you work a little harder, you'll eventually win? No. So just like those transgender children have feelings, concerns that need to be thought about, our little girls do too. And I can be against something and not hate the people that are on the other side of that issue. It is too late in the day for us to be drawing silly lines like that of either just black and white absolute. There are things that I don't like. Whatever happened, and I'm not at all suggesting that what transgender people are doing are sins, but whatever happened to loving the sinner and not liking the sin? We need to make certain at the end of the day that our little girls, our young women, and our women have the opportunity to compete on the highest level on the fairest playing field possible. I don't need to tell you all that when I saw the image of the swim team, the visual dynamic that we saw, the one transgender woman that won, and all the remaining ladies that came in second and third place. Do you know why they came in second or third place? Because that transgender lady used to be a man who swam like a man. And you cannot get over the fact that that transgender young lady comes with the physiological advantages of being a man, and those advantages cannot be overcome by women. Now, I'm certain there'll be someone that'll tell me, but oh, what about Billie Jean King beating the gentleman at tennis? There are no absolutes in this world except Jesus Christ is Lord. There are exceptions to every rule except for that one. But I'm telling you now, we need to make certain that our girls are protected, and I'm committed to that. So let the chips fall where they may. I'll receive the air of people who send me nasty notes like they did before. But I sleep good at night, and you want to know why? Because in my heart, I believe I'm doing the right thing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.